Wow, I love this. An incredibly well-made LEGO dragon resting among the clouds. What's not to love? In this episode, let's take a closer look at this brilliant LEGO creation. We'll study the techniques that have been used in this and take a behind-the-scenes look at some of the deeper details that went into building this stunning MOC. And we'll also take a look at some of the inspiration behind this build, and hopefully, everything in this video will give you some inspiration for your own future builds. Let's get started. This MOC is Libra Dragon, and it's built by Wormy World, otherwise known as Nathan. Now, one thing about this build that really grabbed me was the texture on the body of the dragon. And we can see on the back here, there's a mix of these Technic panel pieces, and various teeth pieces have also been used. Oh, and when we take a look at it from the front, we can also see some of these larger red tail elements too. This kind of eclectic mix of different pieces is a weird but wonderful combination of parts. I really like how varied this design is. Now, Nathan could have easily made these in a way that was quite similar to how Aiden Builds here has built his own dragon MOC, where they've used large quantities of these flipper pieces to very much mimic the scales of a dragon. And this design here looks phenomenal. But Nathan's version of scales stands out in its own unique way. To elaborate a little bit further on what I mean, let's compare these to some non-LEGO images of dragons. We've got this image of a dragon here with scales on its neck. Now, these scales vary in size, and it kind of suits the different areas of the body. When we look at the neck specifically, there's some huge scales there. But on the face and also on the legs back here, they're a little bit smaller. I guess it makes sense that the neck could be a weak point, and that's why the scales are a little bit heartier and bigger in size here. And I would argue to a degree Nathan's MOC emulates this in some fashion. The scales just vary in size in a pretty similar way to this. Or perhaps Nathan was going for more of a look that mimics this dragon's scales. The scales on this image seem to almost look a little bit more like fur. Well, at least they do to me. The face still has some of that kind of scaled texture to it, but it looks a little bit more lizard-like. The scales aren't really, huge, like we saw in the dragon before. And an argument could be made that the texture on the Libra dragon is a little bit more fur-like. I don't know, either one of these looks could be what Nathan was going for, but hey, whatever he was aiming to emulate, he's done a really good job here and the texture looks magnificent. Nathan also mentioned on Flickr that this was of course inspired by Libra, the 7th astrological sign in the Western Zodiac. And since Libra is often represented by a set of scales, Nathan didn't really want to just build a boring set of scales. He decided instead he wanted to do some research, and he found this really cool calendar artwork that featured all the different zodiac signs reimagined as dragons. Here's some images from that calendar, by the way. If you want to look into these a little bit more, I'll have a link in the description to the original source. It's a good source of inspiration. Now, while these designs sparked a level of creativity within Nathan, he noted how all of these images featured mean-looking dragons, and Nathan thought it would be a lot better for this to be a more friendly animated dragon to highlight the qualities of a Libra, which are, extroversion, charm, as well as their element of air. So it's cool how all those things change there, especially from that original source material that gave him the inspiration. It's also nice to know that there's so many images of dragons out there, and you can get all sorts of inspiration from them, whether it's the different body types, how the face might look, or even just kind of the overall shape and size of it. Or heck, you could even do what we were doing before and use dragon imagery to get down into the nitty-gritty details and look at the shape of the scales, or the shape of the claws, the way the eyes might be done, whatever. You can use it to inform your build. So hey, maybe after this it's worthwhile looking up some images of dragons and seeing if they'll inspire a future build. Anyway, that's enough about the inspiration behind this build. Let's discuss some of those awesome techniques that have been used here. The arm design here is clean, simple, and pretty. It's just using your standard Hero Factory bone piece with an armor shell on it, much like we see on Evo Breakout here. But see how on Evo there's this little exposed area here where the bone is unarmored? Well, Wormy has found a solution to that and added these two pieces onto the arm, and it totally removes that gap, and it makes it look even better because it blends that into the rest of the body in a really nice, seamless fashion. Here's the two pieces on Bricklink that are achieving that specific design. It might be worth grabbing some. But yeah, I just love how simple and clean that design is, and it only uses a few extra pieces. Really, really cool. Just next to this, that belly design, I love that. Using these ingot pieces here in the middle, which are some of my favorite system pieces, by the way. They've just got such a nice shape to them that's unlike any other LEGO piece. But yeah, implementing them here onto the belly was a really good call, since it very much looks like scales and just works well for a belly. And from dragon scales to actual scales, the scales on this build are a really fun design, attaching them with these chains onto the horns. It was a nice way of including them. I mean, the Libra dragon could have just as easily been holding the scales, but I don't know, it's nice this way because, them being attached to the horns rather than the hands, it frees up the hands, and this way they can wave and look super adorable. It's a good fit. Now this whole head design, it's kind of perfect. The jaw piece here is a jaw piece from this Legacy Ninjago red dragon here. And then the rest of the face, I don't know, the craftsmanship on this, it's just phenomenal. All the shaping in this head design is awesome. Like the way those minifigure arms and then those robot arms just above, how they form eyelids or a kind of eyebrow. It's amazing how that looks. And it's even cooler to see how it flows directly into the nose there. Just such wonderful shaping on this, and amazingly clean transitions from one piece into the other. This whole head design, chef's kiss, it's beautiful. But how striking are those eyes? Let's actually break down how that's made because the layers in this just really look lovely. It starts off with what I believe is a 2x2 round tile with a stud in the middle, although this could just as easily work with a 2x2 dish in white as well. Then on top of this, we have the bottom part of this ninja mask. These are the ninjas that are specifically seen in the LEGO Ninjago movie. I think that's a very clever part used by Nathan there, great work. Then on top of this black piece, we have a Lord of the Rings golden ring. Great idea to use a piece that sparkles, because then it gives these eyes a nice sparkle to them. Very appropriate. And then linking all of these pieces together is this toe ball piece. What a great eye design. It's cool how all those different pieces, when you combine them together like that, you get an eye with such incredible definition and depth. Stunning. Now, while I was at Brick Fair, I got a few shots of this MOC from behind, and these images showcase how different areas of it have been built. So for example, the tip of the neck here, it shows us how this has been made, how these scales have been attached more specifically. It appears that the whole body is built around a skeleton of CCBS bone pieces, and then different hand socket connectors are attached onto these different bones. They kind of branch off here, and it allows other different parts to link onto that so the scales can kind of form off of that hand connector piece. Nathan's Instagram story also says that the body uses some flex tube elements here as well, so just overall, it's nice to get a bit of insight into how that works. And I've already said it, but this whole body design looks so good. From behind, we can also see how these cloud wings and the cloud that the dragon is emerging from have been built. So long story short, it's a hot mess of different pieces. And I joke, but honestly, that's probably exactly how Nathan built this. To actually achieve this gorgeous cloud-like look that uses a bunch of these dish pieces in different sizes, you'll need to rest them at exactly the right angle so that there aren't too many big gaps in between those pieces and it actually looks like a larger mass that would actually pass as a cloud. So yeah, to do that, I imagine Nathan just used a lot of trial and error to connect them together in the best possible ways, using bars and clips to link each section together, as well as other pieces with clips on them or pieces with stud connections on them, much like this ray gun here, so that you can easily branch off with that stud connection in all sorts of different directions and then lock pieces in place. It's weird, it's strange, pieces are moving in weird directions, but it's kind of the only way you can do this. Oh, and then we can see this CCBS bone piece in the center here. This helps attach this cloud wing onto the body, but it also acts as a nice, stable, strong connection point in the middle that everything can lock onto. So yeah, I think it's nice to know that sometimes something really beautiful like this can look really chaotic and all over the place from behind. But you know what? Who cares? You're only going to be looking at this from one angle anyway. This doesn't need to look pretty from behind. Oh, and Nathan mentioned that he used these clear tubing pieces. These come on some of the older Exo-Force sets. He used these because they are lightweight pieces. He said that in early drafts of these wings, they were just far too heavy and it caused stability issues. Things were falling over. It was a catastrophe. But using those pieces saved the day. So hey, if you are working on something like this, don't forget about the structural integrity of it and the weight of it as well. If that gets too top heavy, the rest of the MOC's not going to be able to stand up. So try and find some lightweight solutions if need be. The bottom cloud is a very similar story, but at least all of this appears to be linking onto the stand in the middle as well as the base of the dragon itself, so there's a lot more connection points you can play off of here. Now all these clouds, they're so pretty and they make use of a lot of different pieces. Some of those pieces include the use of different claw and tail elements, much like these ones here. I mentioned those dish pieces before, a bunch of them are being used here and they make up the bulk of this cloud design. We've also got these beautiful balloon elements, and they've got such a wonderful curve to them. They came on some of the other Friends balloon sets, and they've appeared in some city sets and other different things as well. It's a gorgeous piece, and it comes in a few different colors too. The look of them kind of perfectly illustrates that wispy, flowing cloud effect. Really nice. We've also got some CCBS armor parts here, much like these shin leg armor plates. And then a very strange piece has been integrated in here very, very well. It's this Range Trooper helmet. This is, of course, from that Star Wars Ultra Build set that I'm showing you here. I love how all those noticeable parts of the faceplate and like the visor and all that sort of stuff, those are totally hidden. You're just looking at it from the top. And in this context, you can barely tell it's that piece. It just blends in with the rest of the cloud. It's a great idea to do that. Hide all the ugly parts of one piece and just show one tiny little area. And then when you've coated it in other stuff, suddenly it transforms into something that's actually a little bit more usable. It's so cool seeing a piece that is so hyper-specific to a Star Wars character, but suddenly it's transformed and integrated into something totally different. Very cool. Man, Nathan has built such a well-crafted and well-shaped MOC that's just so full of life. He's a master of his craft, and every build he makes is just awesome. Be sure to check out his other creations on his Instagram and his Flickr. I'll have links in the description below, so be sure to check that out. Nathan's built all sorts of other awesome stuff that you should definitely take a look at. And maybe while you're there, give him a like and give him a follow on his social media. You won't regret doing it. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive look into this wonderful LEGO Dragon. Hopefully it's given you some inspiration. Happy building. Bye for now.